All right, I'd like to welcome you to the first lesson of Book 3 of Beginning Rock Guitar and congratulate you for getting through Book 1, which was the green book, so that was kind of like your green belt, and then Book 2 with the red book, your red belt, and then Book 3 is going to be, your orange belt. and So it's a beginning rock guitar tablature method. And in this book, we'll cover a lot of the techniques that are a lot of fun. We'll do more on the special techniques that you see a lot in lead guitar, like bending strings, maybe vibrato, like techniques like that. And I'll show you specific technique of how to, hand positions for things like that. Hammer-ons. And pull-offs. And special rhythm things like grace notes where you're hammering extremely quick to where it doesn't really affect the rhythm. But we'll talk about all those things as they come up. Plus, with chords, we'll be putting more motives, melody, melodic things in chords. And that's just something I'm making up, but we'll do more than just strum the chords. We'll put in little passing tones and suspensions and window dressing in the chords. So it'll be a lot of fun. Now, the first thing, let me turn to the page, is caged tuning. In the beginning of the book, the beginning of all my books, I have some technical things to look at. And I often look at different ways of tuning or checking the tuning of your guitar. And one is with the pure intervals like octaves, sometimes fifths, because if an octave is out of tune or a fifth is out of tune, it's really easy to hear that. Like if I don't know if I want to get my guitar purposely out of tune here, but here's an octave of C. Now if I just bend this string out of tune, you can you almost hear like a wavering. Those are called beats. And beats, if you hear a beat, that means that the two notes are usually out of tune if they're supposed to be, see it there, it's pure, you don't hear the beats. But these are the C octaves. It's third fret of the fifth string and first fret of the second string. And then you check that with a C chord. So it hit the octaves, or you could hit the chord first and then hit the octaves. Now, what's not in the book is there's another octave between your second finger on the fourth string, second fret, and the first string open. That's also in the C chord. And that's the third of the chord, which, if you're a composer like Bach, you wouldn't double that, but it's doubled in this common C chord. So we have two E's. So you have the C octave and the E octave, and you can check that for purity. Like I say, you want to hear no interference between the notes. Like if I pull this one sharp, you hear that beat, and as it gets more in tune, the beat gets slower, or it levels out to where you don't detect any interference. Okay, so then I'll kind of quickly go through the other chords. You have A, the second one in the caged. So you would check the A octave, which is in the tablature in the book. You can hit the octave first, and then check the chord. See? And then the G, you'd hit the 6th string, 3rd fret. Sorry. And connect and check that with the open 3rd string, which this sounds a little off. Let's see. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then E, you have 2 to check. You've got 3 E's in the E chord. You have the open 6th string, 2nd fret of the 4th string, and the open 1st string. So you can check the 1st octave and then hit the chord. And then you can check the higher octave. Okay? And then what's after E in caged? D. So you can check that octave and then check the chord. And going through all the caged chords, C, A, G, E, D, like one could sound perfectly in tune, and then you go, like if you played the G chord, it could be perfectly in tune, and then your E could be out. And usually it's that 3rd string, like if there's like if the frets are kind of high or the string's kind of high right near the nut, when you press it, it could go sharp. And that, like if that's sharp, it'll sound like this. I'm kind of pulling it out of tune. So that's in tune. That's out of tune. And sometimes you have to do what we call tempering between 2 chords. As a guitar teacher, I've had a lot of students with real cheap guitars, and sometimes it's almost impossible to get the guitar totally perfectly in tune because for one thing, the guitar is not built very accurately and not set up very well. And the thing about it is, like in the 60s, they made, like these department store guitars you could buy at Sears or Montgomery Ward, and they were cheap guitars, but they were built like trucks. And so even 30 years later, I would have students, well, this was my grandmother's guitar, and wonderful, and I could see it was an El Cheapo Sears type or Montgomery Ward guitar, and often you just couldn't tune them very well. So I would have to do my best to temper between the chords, like one chord, get that in tune, and then the other one's out of tune, so then I'll get that one a little more in tune, and then this one's tolerably out of tune, and this one's tolerably out of tune. But it's better than having one chord perfectly in tune and the other one really sour, So as a music teacher, you get experienced with tuning cheap instruments, and that's what we call tempering. And then sometimes it would help, and I always have students use a capo, often at the 5th fret, and that would help, like if the action's real high, you put a capo at the 5th fret and it lowers the action and makes it more playable, and it could make it more tunable. So, all those little tricks I would use. But checking pure intervals like octaves, I'm sorry, that wasn't an octave, or fifths. And another thing that's not in the book here is a little routine I go through to check chords. And what I'll do is play root fifth chords. So it's all roots and fifths. Like with G, you could hit the third fret of the first string, third fret of the second string, and then the open G. And you're playing an octave and a fifth. And if that sounds pretty pure, then your guitar, at least those three strings, are pretty much in tune. And then you could do D, third fret, second fret A, and open D. And then second fret A, second fret E, and open A. And then second fret E, second fret B, and open E. And I would just mute any other strings so you don't hear any like other notes. And just go through those quickly, like. And so those second fret chords, I'll just bar sometimes just clamp my first finger. But I make sure I don't hit like an extra. You don't want to hit 4 strings. You just want to hit 3 strings. And if all those sound pretty pure, then your guitar is pretty well tempered there. That's the one thing, and a piano tuner told me a long time ago, and this is something to remember. You're never going to get your guitar absolutely perfectly in tune, okay? So don't even stress about that. There's always going to be little imperfections because with a guitar you have 2 completely different parameters. You have the frets, the tuning of each fret up the neck, and then you have the tuning between the open strings. And those can sometimes be in conflict if the frets are a little off, or what we call good intonation, and that's the distance between where the string comes over the bridge and where it goes over the nut. And this one has individual little saddle pieces that you can adjust to get better intonation. And usually when we get that picky, I would take my guitar to a repairman and have them adjust it, because they'll have great strobe tuners to check it with that are much more accurate than these little snark tuners that we use. If you're not familiar with it, the snark tuner, which is around $8 or $10. The last time I bought them, they were about $8 on Amazon, or $8 and some change. They may have gone up since then, but anyway, so don't think that you're going to get your guitar perfectly in tune, and you don't want to get into what we call tuning fits, where you're just like constantly tuning all the time. But just get it to where it's tolerable, And I'm a blues player, and a lot of guitar players in Mississippi, I noticed, they don't really care if their guitars are in tune. And that's kind of a joke, but actually there's some truth to that, So you can be a little bit, what Jimmy Vaughn said, called Buddy Guy kind of out of tuneness, where it's just slightly out of tune, but it's kind of cool because it's blues, So this is cage tuning, and then in the next little pre-lesson thing, we'll talk about tuning with harmonics. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe and like my Facebook channel, John Hedger Guitar Studio, and I'll see you in the next video. I'll try to make it shorter. I'll try not to ramble. I haven't done a lesson in some months now, but I got this new camera now. I'm ready to go through book 3, and you might want to purchase book 3. It's just look in the notes of um, how you can pay me I can send you the book by mail, and then you can follow the lessons, and it'll be pretty enjoyable. You know, we'll be doing a lot of really good things in book 3. And the purpose of all 3 of these books is to get your reading of tablature up to speed to where I could give you a Jimi Hendrix song, and you'd be able to take it home without even me explaining much of it, and learn and read the tablature and understand the rhythms and how to finger things. You can see the fingerings and the hammer-ons, the pull-offs, all those things. We just want to get your reading up to a certain level to where you can, I can give you a Chuck Berry solo, like. And you can figure out from the rhythms in the tablature, because I've countless students have told me, you know, they'll come to me for lessons and say, "Oh yeah, I read tablature," but they don't really know rhythms and or understand rhythms, um, unless maybe they've had saxophone for 3 years in marching band, or percussion, drums and marching band, or something like that in school. But we're kind of learning, you know, basic musical principles, and so, like I say, this is the higher level, but it's not really the highest level. When you get through book 3, this is all just to get you into more advanced reading and playing in rock guitar. Okay? So, as I said, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.